everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish on the Movies, and guess what? It's Halloween month, and we're doing a review of the 1968, quote, psychological, unquote, horror film, Rosemary's Baby. It's 1968, and it is also a book by Ira Levin. So I've seen the movie, and I also read the book a million years ago. So the stars of the film, I'll just mention a few. A very famous woman, Mia Farrow.
Well, she's famous because of this movie, to be fair.
Yeah. She played Rosemary Woodhouse, and her husband is Guy Woodhouse, and his name is John Cassavetes. And then Charles Grodin, I just wanted to mention, he's a famous kind of comedy actor. He's been around a long time. Well, that was his film debut. He played Dr. Hill. He wasn't in the film big time, but just, he made his appearance, he had some lines, and he did a good job.
The guy from Clifford. Because we watched the movie Clifford, and he was the uncle in that. And I thought, oh, he looks familiar. Oh, wait, it's him.
Okay, well, there's two neighbors, a couple. There's Minnie Cassavetes and her husband, Roman, and they're played by Ruth Gordon and Sidney Blackmer. And then there's one more, the doctor that they recommend that she see. That was Dr. Abraham Saperstein, and he's played by Ralph Bellamy, a very famous actor. Okay, well, this is about this couple, the Woodhouses. They're a young couple. They live in New York City, and they're looking for an apartment. I think they want a bigger apartment because they want to have kids, and they just want to be in a nicer place. And he is a struggling actor, and he has been in a few plays, and he is wanting to be in this other one, but this other guy got the part.
And you don't need to explain the whole movie, because people have already seen it.
Well, I don't know about that. But anyway, they're looking for an apartment. They find one. The neighbors are the Cassavetes, who I mentioned at the top. And she gets pregnant, but there's something weird about the night she gets pregnant, and there's all kinds of weird things that go on. A woman jumps out of the window of the apartment, one of the apartments, the Cassavetes apartment. Apparently a girl was living with them.
There's a secret closet.
And they come into they find out there's a bureau over a wall, and there's a closet in there.
There's all sorts of weird things.
Just all kinds of things. And they hear things, too.
Things that are actually happening. Like, she's not just, thinking this stuff happens, but it doesn't. It's all happening. And so, that's basically the movie. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and it's probably one of the most boring movies I've ever seen. I can't call it a horror movie at all. I think it's more like a thriller, maybe.
Well, they call it a psychological thriller. I don't even know what that means. A psychological? What does that even mean?
There's nothing really psychological about it. It's just so boring and painfully bad. I think it's probably one of the most overrated, terrible horror movies I've ever seen. And, and the people watching, hopefully they know the other horror movies I saw this year, which were even worse. But still, this movie was trash. The main actress, the main character, she's so stupid. She's the reason they invented the term dumb blonde. She's just completely brainless, and she's such a whiny little baby the whole movie. Speaking of babies, and the movie's filmed like a stage play, and what I mean by that is it's so boringly shot, and
Well, it's like they're confined to one place.
Yeah,
Because
they
if you
are.
were on a stage,
And
that would be one place.
another thing is, it seems like they didn't have a budget, but they had millions of dollars for this movie, which is embarrassing because to me it feels like it was made for like $10 over the weekend. And especially it's so bad. It's like I don't really have anything positive to say. And I know that, of course, people are going to say, oh, Marco, it's just because you're a millennial, so you don't like old movies. And it's like, no, because you know what? I looked up this year in movies, and I've already seen 7 other movies from this year, including The Producers, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I liked all of those movies better than this piece of shit movie. So,
Well, it could be that that year that was the best horror movie they could come up with.
no, because Night of the Living Dead came out that year.
Oh.
Excuse me.
Well, that's a different
Yeah.
type of. It's not a psychological thriller.
Yeah, it's an actual horror movie with actual horror in it
And
instead
there's
of.
movement, and they're not
Yeah.
in just one place.
And that movie was made for less than this. But to be honest, that movie looks a lot better than this, especially all those really creative effects in that movie. I mean, see how embarrassing it is when you have these big studios making these big studio, quote, horror movies, and they're just terrible. I mean, it's supposed to be a suspense film, but it breaks all the rules of suspense because
There's no suspense.
there's
But
no
to me,
suspense whatsoever.
We just reviewed the most recent episode of Fargo, and there was more suspense or tension
Yeah, that
or
episode
scariness
a million times better.
was in that short episode than there was in this movie, and that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
So
But
I would still watch it or read the
really,
book. Because the
You
book
would-
is really good, and the book tells you a lot more about what's going on. But it really not more because it's so slowly made. I mean, it's just you feel like you're kind of like going in slow motion when you watch the movie, and it's
well, the reason why
That's
that
not
is
good.
the reason why that is because it's breaking the rules of suspense. Because they refuse to tell you what's going on. But then again they tell you what's going on basically. Like you can surmise what's going on. And so it's like, what's the point of keeping all this in secret if I'm already smart enough to figure it out myself? Like, I'm not as stupid and dumb as the Rosemary character. You know, I actually have a brain. And so I already knew what was going on. Like even with the husband and how he got the acting position. I mean, it was just clear as day. There's no suspense anywhere in that. And to me, it would have been a much better film if we had seen it from the cult's perspective. Because one of the more interesting elements in the movie to me was the cult and how near the beginning they're like criticizing the Pope for wearing all this expensive jewelry and this costuming, and then you contrast that with, well, the devil himself appears in the movie and he's like naked, he has like long fingernails, he's like hairy all over, and it's like, oh, so you're like the exact opposite. Like the devil, he's just this naked red loser, this big demon thing, and it's like, that guy doesn't look too impressive either, to be honest. And then you have the hypocrisy of how she gifts this charm necklace to Rosemary, and
he's talking about Mrs. Cassavetes.
It's like this expensive charm necklace, and it's like you're just criticizing the Pope for wearing expensive jewelry, and then you give this overly expensive devil charm to Rosemary, and it's like you're really a fool yourself. And I wish we could have seen like more of that. Like if it was more of like a in-depth critique of Satanism through looking at that cult's perspective and seeing the cult really do things. Because I knew that they killed that girl. I mean,
yeah.
they were on the street, and then the old couple just happens to be walking to the scene, and it's like they looked evil. Like, if I had seen them, I would have just left right then and there. Like, they looked evil.
Well, they always acted suspicious to me.
The guy's wearing a pink suit. What kind of a man wears a pink suit in the 60s?
Well, maybe somebody in London. She also, what really irritated me is back at that year, in those couple of 67, 68, there was a model in England named Twiggy. And I don't know her real name, but she cut her hair really short. And she wore these little, they call them like baby doll dresses. They were like, the mini skirt. They were mini dresses, but and she was very skinny. She looked like a toothpick. Maybe that's why they called her Twiggy. And anyway, in the movie, Rosemary has a nice head of hair, which was a wig, obviously. And she gets the Twiggy look. So she cuts her hair all off, and she's wearing these little baby doll dresses. And it really irritated me.
It's a postmodern type of look, Safi.
Well, I didn't like the look of it then, I didn't like it now.
That's how like 60% of women look like nowadays.
Well, I don't know about that, but
yeah.
She, it didn't look good. I mean, it was like she was copying this look. And, Twiggy had the look. That's fine, Twiggy did it. But then, as her pregnancy progressed...
Maybe that was a scene they cut out, though, was her getting the haircut. Maybe they had, like, a scene where the hairdresser is telling her, you should get this haircut because it's trendy right now.
Yeah, and they do that, too, I remember. But, back then, even when I saw the movie, I thought, she's just copying Twiggy. I don't like it. And it's very funny because during the movie, her husband said, why did you get that haircut? I hate it. I mean, he really, and he didn't just say it once.
No one liked it.
He said it multiple times. And so anyway, as the movie progressed, her pregnancy progressed, because she kept having these terrible pains. And, I mean, she was really, like, doubled over. It was terrible. And she got these big, dark circles under her eyes.
She looked like...
And she looked like a concentration camp survivor. It was just awful. And, when she had that horrible haircut.
But I thought...
I just didn't like it at all.
That's another example of sort of them critiquing cults, critiquing Satanism, because... the reason why those people didn't like that haircut was because the baby was inside of her, and she's practically the devil's wife. And so they don't like the fact that the devil's wife looks like a boy now, and she has this boyish feminazi haircut. And so it's funny because it pisses them off so much, and it's like they couldn't do anything about it because they have to be nicey nice at that point. And I thought that was another example of sort of like a smart jabbing at the Satanist group. And other things about the movie, I mean, I think probably one of the only positive things would be I didn't like the building at all, to be honest. Everyone else does. I hated it. I thought that it was pretty boring looking, to be honest. Like, the only thing I liked about it was the elevator, since it had the old-fashioned thing where you have to pull it open and everything. I liked that, but I hated the look of everything. But there was the phone booth scene that I liked because there was like this man standing outside the phone booth, and it was almost like he was guarding it, and he looked really intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, uh-oh. And then it turned out to be just some random guy. But I thought that was one moment where it was kind of well done with that. But I just hated this movie. Sorry, but I just hated it. I'm not going to pretend to like it so that one person will give this video a thumbs up.
Well, if you have the time, my time is pretty precious, but I like to. I haven't seen it for a million years, and I wanted to watch it again, and I wouldn't read the book again. And we do every year. We do a lot. We watch several movies for Halloween month. That's what we do, and that's kind of the core of what we do, anyways. Horror, scary movies. We do all this other to branch out, so we'll be diverse. But it's it's really slow. I don't, this psychological thriller thing. I don't know what that even means. That's what it's described at in when you look it up in Google. At the very top, it says it's a psychological thriller that came out in 1968. Well, I don't know what that means. And or it no,
It means it's not really a horror movie.
Or no, it might say a horror, a psychological horror
There's no
movie.
such thing as psychological horror.
I don't know what that means. I don't even know when they say that. I don't even know what they're trying to say.
That's a complete, because horror is already psychological. There's no difference between making a movie about a giant spider and then making a horror movie about like The Shining, where it's about a alcoholic evil person. And so there's no difference. All horror is psychological, and this movie is not a horror movie. And now, what would you rate this movie, Safi?
Well, it just happened to be yesterday we went to Wendy's, and basically the only thing I ever get there is a potato, like a cheesy potato. That's it. But I decided, I'm going to eat one of these chicken sandwiches, and so I got what's called something like a crispy chicken sandwich. Well, apparently at Wendy's, when you order a sandwich, you have to order everything. In other words, you say, I want a sandwich with all these condiments, whatever you want. If you want lettuce and tomato, all that stuff, you have to ask for it. If you don't, you just get the meat. And that's what I got yesterday. I got this kind of soft chicken meat with nothing, not even mayonnaise, not anything on it. No lettuce, no tomato, no nothing. And I went ahead and ate it anyway because I was starving. But it was very bland, and it would have been nice to have like at least lettuce and mayonnaise or whatever the sauce they have. And there was nothing, and that's what this movie was like. It was slow and bland, and they could have probably cut off. Marco said when it was first made, before they got the edit scissors, that it was a 4-hour movie. I can't even imagine that. I don't know what they would have showed, and that they couldn't have done in an hour and a half or something. I just thought a lot could have been trimmed off, and they were too in one place. And there's another movie we've seen called Rope. That was basically in 1 to 2 places, but there was a lot of suspense and tension and
but that was
horror.
made by Hitchcock.
That's right.
An actually talented filmmaker.
And that is, and we watched another one of his Lifeboat, and that really was in one place. That was in a boat, and that was so well done. So it can be done. So, but they didn't do it.
But that was directed by Hitchcock.
Right. So, and the person who directed it was Roman Polanski. And so, anyway, it's just, it's a shame because it's an interesting story. I mean, it could be. And the book really isn't any better. The book it's really basically the book pasted onto the film. And a film, like I said when we reviewed Fargo, the film, it should be something special. It's visual. So you don't need to tell, you just visual, and you do everything you can to make it the best visual it can be. And at least that's a big part of it. I'm not saying there's nothing else that's important about film, like people who play the characters, the dialogue, that. But anyway, that's what I gave it, a very bland, with nothing on it. And it's moist. It wasn't even crispy. Yeah, God.
Okay, and I would rate the movie. In middle school, one of the shitty school lunches they had was a pretzel lunch, where you get a pretzel for your lunch, and that's the lunch, and and the pretzel wouldn't have any salt on it, and so it's just this bland big pretzel. There's no cheese sauce that you get with it, and I would also get a green apple Izzy most of the time. And the green apple Izzy is probably one of the worst flavors. It has a very sour, bitter taste, and it's just not that good.
That could represent the charm she had to wear, this tannin or tannus root. She had to. They constantly gave her drinks and foods, and she had to wear a necklace with this fruit in it.
And the dummy ate it, and so with the green apple Izzy, and then for dessert you get a little tiny, little Debbie, chocolate fudge sandwich. What's that thing called? The fudge Debbie thing, where it's like 2 chocolate soft cookies with chocolate fudge inside.
Oh, is that a wheel or something?
No, and so it's just the most bland, boring, unhealthy lunch. There's no nutrition in it. It doesn't fulfill you at all, so it leaves you starving to death the whole rest of the day. And it's just a terrible lunch. And that's what this movie was. The pretzel really is like just this bland thing, like the movie. And then you have that bitterness of not being able to see what's going on. And then you have the little cookie at the end type thing, where you do get to see what's going on, but it's too little, too late. And for spoilers, I liked the part when she gets tea at the very end, and she's like, "What's in this?" And then the woman's like, "It's just tea, dear." And I thought that was really funny, because it was like she was so used to being drugged the entire movie, and then at the end, it's like she's just fed up with it, but that woman is so straight with her. She says it's just tea. And I thought, Ruth Gordon, she did a good job, but she could have done a lot better if they had given her more. I felt like most of the movie she was just the same character. Like, she never really got to express any evil or any other sides other than just this crazy neighbor woman. And Safi, you liked the scene with the spitting. The moment, because you hated the husband.
Well, the husband, this was kind of like the robot women, that we saw that.
The Stepford Wives.
Yeah, the Stepford Wives. The husbands were so selfish and controlling, and they were murderers. They'd murder their real wives and have robots who look like their wives installed, so they would have the house perfectly clean. They wore perfect clothes, and everything would be just perfect.
They're way better than the people in this movie. Sorry.
And her husband, he was gonna move them there all along, and they helped him by putting a spell on the guy that was doing this part, so he could be blind overnight. They took a piece. What they did was he traded an item. I don't know what it was, where they each had each other's whatever it was, like a scarf or whatever. And because they're witches, if you know anything about voodoo or anything, you have to have something that belongs to them. Or
okay, and we don't need to know all that. You've already.
So
I've already explained the
So
whole plot.
anyway, she was manipulated all along
Yeah,
because
we
her
already
husband
knew
was
that.
going to live
We
there.
already knew that.
So he's part of the cult. So I just thought he's a horrible, horrible person. And so in the end, and she accepts the baby, and because she's the mother, and you can't take that away.
No, you can, because it's the devil's baby.
Well,
And she should have stabbed it to death right then and there.
well, that's what they thought she was going to do, but she was trying to. She wanted to take the baby and take care of it herself. They were taking care of the baby, and anyway. What happened was he tried to be all nice and he said, now we can go to California, we can live this Hollywood life, and everything's going to be just fine. She spit in his face. I thought he really deserved it, and I know that sounds terrible, but I'm sorry. I mean, he was, so selfish and so into himself that he would do that to his wife. That's their first baby, and that's not wasn't their baby, it's the devil's baby. And how could she even want to be with him? Which she didn't. She hated him for what he did, and so she spit in his face. So that was my favorite part in the whole movie. Sorry. Okay.
And so Safi hated it too.
Well, it was just very disappointing. When you watch somebody and with something like that, and it comes from way back when you were really very young, and it just isn't good. It just isn't that great. I don't remember it being great and I read the book too, so I don't remember it being great then either. And I didn't watch movies as closely as I do now and looking for things good or bad. I just watched it for entertainment, and I don't remember it being that good.
There's no entertainment to be had.
Yeah, and I didn't like her haircut. I hated it. It bugged me then, and it bugs me now.
So
that's it. And what's going to be our next movie that we're
The Lost Boys.
The Lost Boys. So be looking for that, because we'll be watching it very, very, very soon. And please like or subscribe, make a comment, whatever. We would appreciate it.
Dislike it too.
Well, hopefully you like it more than you dislike it, but whatever. We would appreciate the feedback. Okay? So bye, everybody.
Bye.